These are prices on. Excuse me. Good morning. Happy Friday. Friday. All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Okay. I got you. I will look at it. Okay. All right. There we go. Okay. It's doing that admit thing again where you're in, but you're still in my waiting room. All right. We're still waiting on half the class, but while we wait on them, if you would look at your toxicology um, overview, we're going to do the second part of that uh, lesson. So just remind yourself of what toxicology is. Giving everybody a few minutes to get in. Again, hopefully you're looking at the toxicology unit. So last time we talked about the fact that drugs have to metabolize. We looked at our activity was to create a document with the vocabulary from the PowerPoint. So if you haven't completed that assignment, please make sure that you do.
All right, forensic students, welcome back to
Okay, hold on. Still trying to admit some folks before we get started. All righty. Good morning, good morning, good morning. All right. While I got this up on freeze, jot those four things down, the four disciplines of forensic toxicology. She's going to talk about death investigations. We've had that word before, post-mortem, human performance toxicology, doping control, and forensics workplace drug testing. So take a minute to jot those down. Give it a few more minutes for folks to come in. Like I said, while you're waiting, please jot down those four disciplines. All right, so death investigation toxicology and postmortem toxicology go together. That's one. Human performance toxicology, that's two. Doping control is three, and forensic workplace testing is the fourth one. I think everybody else is just on a Friday late, so we're going to go ahead and get started.
all right, forensic students.
Okay, this is gonna be one of the, okay. It's gonna be one of those when my whole Zoom page just disappeared. And I need to redo some things, so give me a minute. Okay, so you're still on focus. That's still going. Okay. Alrighty. I don't know what's happening today. It's Friday. All right. Yeah. Share screen back. Like I said, my whole Zoom just left and came back. Okay, let's try again. Come on, play.
Toxins on the human body. And a forensic toxicologist is a medical professional that's going to work with the medical examiner and sometimes investigators to determine cause of death. So there are four divisions of forensic toxicology, and we're going to go through each of these and talk a little bit about each one today. So we have death investigation toxicology, which is also known as post-mortem toxicology. We also have human performance toxicology. We have a division called doping control, and then forensic workplace testing. So we'll go through each of those. So for post-mortem toxicology, of course, post-mortem means after death. So after somebody's death, if it's a suspicious death, they might be sent for an autopsy. And upon the autopsy, these toxicologists and these pathologists are going to determine if those toxins, first, if there are toxins in the victim system, and did those toxins and the quantities of those toxins lead to that person's death. They're going to do that through controlled testing. This can take several weeks. This can take several months. It just sort of depends. So again,
Okay. Like I said, we're having one of those Fridays. All right, usually it's you guys that are popping in and out. Today it's me. The Zoom just keeps coming and going. They say third time's a charm. Let's try it again. Mhm. Say if at first you don't succeed, try again. Here we go.
Toxins in the body, and then determine ultimately if this had anything to do with the person's cause of death. All right, so I don't know if you're familiar with the lady in the picture, but this is the late Whitney Houston. She was a talented, very talented singer and songwriter, and she died mysteriously in like around 2012. So, of course, since she was famous and her death was a mysterious death, it was very sudden. They called in a toxicologist. They sent her body for an autopsy to try to determine what led to her death. So, they ultimately determined that the cause of death was drowning, but it was actually due to cocaine intoxication. So there was a process there, and we'll talk about this more when we get into like cause of death and manner of death and mechanism of death. But basically, Whitney Houston's cocaine use led to a coronary artery disruption, which led to drowning. So one event led to another, which led to another. So while the initial cause of death was drowning, the mechanism of death was the coronary artery disruption, and that was due to cocaine use. So, of course, a toxicologist had to work with forensic investigators to try to determine that. So, the forensic investigators had to investigate, they had to try to figure out what toxins may have been in her system. They had to relay that information to the forensic toxicologist, and then ultimately, the forensic toxicologist had to test tissue samples and blood samples to determine that she was under the influence of cocaine. And of course, they figured out from there that that eventually led to her death. All right, the second division of toxicology is called human performance toxicology. So this deals with the effects of alcohol and drugs on human performance and behavior. This can include a lot of different things. So basically, impaired driving situations, vehicular homicide or assault cases, different drug facilitated crimes like sexual assault crimes, aircraft crimes, or accidents, motor vehicle accidents, any sort of accident that has to be investigated and there is suspicions that somebody may have been under the influence, then they're going to call in that forensic toxicologist from there. And these toxicologists are going to be asked to test blood and urine samples that are often submitted by an investigator. All right, the third division of forensic toxicology is doping control. So different governing bodies of competitive and intramural sports are going to have different rules regarding performance enhancing drug use. And that's basically to protect the amateurs and professional athletes that participate in these sports. So it's just a way to maintain a fair and even competitive standard, but they exist. So most of these intramural sports and professional sports are going to have doping control agents or agencies that they use to test their athletes. So if you recognize the guy in the picture, this is Lance Armstrong. He's a former professional road cyclist. He was stripped of 7 Tour de France medals. And that was after he admitted using performance enhancing drugs. So a doping control agent was there to test those blood samples and urine specimens, and they were able to verify that when he admitted he was telling the truth. This doesn't just happen in, um, with cyclists. This happens with all professional sports, Olympic athletes, Major League Baseball players, NBA, WNBA athletes. They're all somewhat involved in scandals from time to time. All right, so the last division of human performance toxicology is what we call workplace drug testing. So, this is when a toxicologist is called into a place of employment and they test employees for certain drugs. And so we know that the use of drugs by people in the workplace can have significant safety and economic consequences. And so workers in these safety sensitive positions are not supposed to use recreational drugs or take certain medications without a prescription. And so from time to time, these workplace toxicologists will come in and they can do pre-employment testing, they can do random drug testing, or what we call for-cause drug testing. So something's going on, we need to make sure all of our workers are clean, they're not under the influence, and so a forensic toxicologist could be called in for that. All right, so the last thing I want to point out, I'm going to send you on a little hunt. If you'll go to YouTube and type in the history of toxicology and forensics, there is a TED Talk that is really good at going all the way back, like several hundred years, to one of the first cases that used toxicology to solve that case. Very interesting. So if you have time, take a look at that video. If not, I'll see you in the next video where we're going to be talking about death and the.
All right. So that's not in the same series as we are, but and then we do not have access to that TED Talk, so we will just continue on in the module. All right, so hopefully you wrote down those 4 headings. The last one um, will, if it hasn't already touched your life in a job that you went to seek, it will, because most jobs these days ask you to go to a special unit where they ask you for either a urine sample or a blood sample, and they are testing for drug use. Okay. While certain drugs are legal, they're not legal on the job. Okay. So you need to keep that in mind, that they do screenings. And so let's go back to Canvas. And if you take a look, this is the second page in the Canvas. If you haven't read the first one, please go back and read that. And as you are reading this, I'm going to take attendance. Okay. So again, if you have not read the first page, please start from there. Types of drugs. And then come to the next page. All right, so we did this last class. So today I want you to focus on this page. And I'm going to stop sharing, take attendance, and I'll be right back. Looks like the Zoom is settled down, not popping in and out anymore. And I'm looking at Go Guardian, and half of y'all are not looking at the page I asked you to look at. The PowerPoint, yes, Brooklyn. You had exit question that went with that. That is going in the grade book. And then so you had two assignments, one that was the exit question on the um, PowerPoint, and the second one on um, metabolic acidosis. So please make sure that those two assignments are done. See, some people have and some people haven't. So again, while I'm doing attendance, that would be a good thing to take a look at to make sure you have those done. And it's done. Of course you can come. All right. So yes, drugs and poison is already in there. So that assignment, just if you've done it in the last 24 hours, it does need to be graded. And metabolic acidosis. Those are the two assignments that are already in the grade book. Some of you have done it, some of you have done neither one. Okay. And I apologize, Lorenzo. My Zoom was going in and out, so you might have been waiting, and then but I was out, and then I'm back in, so I will give you credit for that. Give me a 1 second to fix that. Yeah, Zoom is acting weird today. A lot of times that happens when I share. It doesn't always like when I share. All right, Lorenzo, I took care of that. You're in. All right, Lorenzo, we are in toxicology. Looking at that, we're looking at, and I'm checking the grade book, and you're one of those who needs to make sure you get those assignments done. All right, that's another one. Jaden, good morning. Good morning. All right, we are in toxicology. Toxicology. All right. Good morning, good morning. Okay. All right. All right. So if you turned in something yesterday evening, it will get graded after this class. And again, because Infinite Campus upgrades after in the afternoon, it may not be the same as what is in Infinite Campus. So what's in the Canvas may not be the same as what's in Infinite Campus. So keep that in mind, that it updates in the afternoon. So changes I make now may not be reflected until the weekend. Alrighty. I think we got everybody who's waiting in the waiting room. All right, so we're on types of drugs. And there we go again. I got my fingers crossed that things will be okay. It won't disappear again. All right. So there are different headings for drugs. You need to keep that in mind. And because there are different headings for drugs, there's going to be different kinds of tests for the drugs. And again, the biggest challenges, as it says here, oops, there we go, is understanding um, because metabolism is this. All right. So one of the things we talked about last lesson is a lot of times when something gets into the body and you go through the digestive process, it changes. So they have to look for, they need to know how a drug is metabolized, how it breaks down in the body, and the effects of that drug on the body. So that is one of the challenges to looking at that. Again, you got to be a good chemistry major to work in this field. Alrighty. And then we have all these lovely initials. So OTCs are over the counter drugs. And those are the ones that people can just walk up to, like what's the one that they um the nighttime Tylenol. People were abusing that. You can just walk in and buy an Tylenol. You don't have to go to the pharmacy counter to get that. But people were buying that, and anytime you take more than you're supposed to, that's abuse. So it doesn't have to be illegal for it to cause damage. All right, that keeps. Okay, anabolics. Anabolics. So hopefully you went through and you clicked on these. Anabolic steroids promote cell tissue growth, increasing bone mass and body mass. So these are the ones they're looking for. When she spoke about the athletes, they're the ones that, these are the kind that they would take. Okay. And they have side effects. So they might be helping them as an athlete now, but down the road, they're not going to help them very much. As you get older, you start to see these side effects of anything that you've abused. All right, so make sure you read that over. Oops, hold on. All right, so yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger was one who was a bodybuilder before he became governor and actor and all of that sort of stuff, but he was a bodybuilder. And so he took a lot of um, body enhancing drugs. Most of those bodybuilders too. Oh, actually, let me go back again. All right, so also be aware of their street names. Okay. All right, club drugs. As young people who might go out and partay, you need to be aware of these. I'm sure you've heard some of these already. Some of the shows you watch, Molly's and Roofies and the Disco Biscuit. Those are club drugs. So there's a quite a lengthy paragraph. Please make sure that you're reading these over. All right, so this is how they work in the body, and they work on the brain. So you're going to the dopamine pathways to get in your system, and they mostly deal with the frontal part of your brain. Okay, so all of the things that the frontal part of your brain controls, it will affect those, which are um, motivation, pleasure, motor functioning, compulsion, and perseverance. All of that is affected by those types. And then the serotonin pathway is the ones in red. They're mostly affecting um, the upper part of the brain, and they're going to um, deal with your function, your motor functions, your mood, your memory, processing, sleep, and cognition. What you remember from what you don't remember. All right, so again, go ahead and read each of these. So sometimes they give you a drug, like for this one, for narcolepsy, people who fall asleep all the time. They just sit there and just nod out. Um, okay. Now remember, these are the club drugs. And notice how many of them cause you not to remember what you did. All right, so if you haven't read that, take a few minutes to read that over. And then let's look at, all right. So this is the page that I really wanted you to look at today as far as techniques for testing and screening. All right, let's focus your attention on the these testing colors. So you're going to have to know this. I'm going to have a little matching quiz where you have to know what test they're doing and what is the result of that test. So if you're using Marquise, you're looking for the presence of an opioid. If you're using the Dilly Copani, the test you're going to test it will turn purple in the presence of barbiturates. And a lot of these are hard to pronounce. DuQuince Levi is purple color in the presence of marijuana. And Van Erck turns purple in the presence of LSD. So a lot of purple going on here. And the Scott test turns blue if there's cocaine present. So take a minute to um, look at that. I'm going to have a gizmo activity for you to do where they're doing testing. Okay. So please read that over, read this one over. All right, so they gave you two examples of people that they had to do testing on in the video. One was Whitney Houston, the other one was the cyclist. Uh, there have been others that have lost their Olympic medals because they tested positive for enhancing drugs. All right, and here again, they test you. They either do a blood sample or they do a urine sample. And that's how they test for the different, whether you are engaging or not. So they do this on living people, not just dead people. All right, so read that over. Those of you who haven't finished those other two assignments, take a minute to do that. I'm going to put the next assignment in the Dropbox in a second. All right, this one has a list of the types of drugs and the harm to others or harm to the users. So read over that one. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing while I put the other assignment in the Dropbox. All right, so wherever you're doing, give me your attention. Let me explain this activity to you. Actually, let me look at this as a student. Okay, view as a student. All right, so it's in the module. It's in the module. I kind of have two sections for toxicology. One that's going to have all the activities in it, and the one that has the um, so it's going to be the toxicology. It's under the PowerPoint module, but it's just above the regular toxicology. So we're going to look at pick your poison, and it should also be. Let me check. It should also be on your desktop, on your to-do list. All right. So this is a project. This is a project. This is a project. All right. It's called Pick Your Poison. All right. So we're going, it says it defines toxicology. Um, and we're not actually going to do this as a giant PowerPoint, but I am going to have a, a share board where we will share. I will have you post your PowerPoint and folks will look at what you did there. So we're not creating a giant uh, thing, and I may take that out later. But you are responsible. So this is the part you need to pay attention to. You are responsible for designing a PowerPoint for 2 poisons. It should be at least 2. You can do 3. All right, so you should read. So we have 4 topics: household or environmental poisons, animal poisons, plant poisons, and food poisons. Those are the 4 topics you need to pick 2. Okay, your PowerPoint shouldn't be teeny tiny font, so don't try to just do all your information on one slide. Make it big enough so that it can be read by everybody without squinting. And it should at least have 5 major points about each type of poison. So those points are a description of the poison. So you take your title, describe the poison or organism in the poison, the type of poison. So look at the categories, and those are which ones they're categorized by which organ of the body they attack. Okay, so what part of the body is affected by this drug, the level of toxicity, and that makes it dangerous. Remember, certain things are metabolized. Uh, some people can handle a certain level of the drug or not. So at what level is it toxic? Body symptoms. How would somebody know that you've taken this drug? And additional points may include forensicality, the brief description of a forensic case that involved this situation, like the same way that they gave you the example of the cyclist and Whitney Houston. Find a case that used this particular that was involving this particular drug that you picked. Okay, possible cures, treatments, lasting effects. Now, so this is the rubric for how it's graded. You can do an extra one. So some of you who needs to have your grade pulled up, if you do an extra one, if you do 3, if you do 4, it's extra. Okay, but you're only required to do 2, poison 1 and poison 2. Okay. All right, so again, follow directions. If you want all your points, don't make it teeny tiny. Make sure that you have defined what the drug is, what type of drug it is. So in other words, is it a household? Is it an animal type, plant type, or food type? That's the type. Description. What part of the body does it attack? The brain, the liver, the lungs, that kind of thing. How much do you have to have in the body in order for it to be toxic and recognize and register as cause of death or have any effect? What are the symptoms and any additional information such as a case study? Possible. So it can be a case study, it can be possible cures or lasting effects. It's got to be one of these. Okay. Include illustration, a picture, and don't worry about no two. This is a project from someplace. Don't worry about no two people with the same poison. This is a large class and there's only 4 categories, so that we're not going to worry about this. There's going to be overlap. Okay, so don't worry about that. I may tweak this, take that out. Okay, all right. Any questions? Any questions? All right, so if you're not working on the 2 assignments that are already due, you can go ahead and get started on this one. And all right, so next week is the 4-class week. I mean the 4-day week. So you'll work on this on Tuesday and Thursday. So it's due, and it is due Thursday. You have until the 20th, but it should say that it's due on it's up here, due on the 12th. So you will have today and the 10th and the 12th to work on this in class. And then Friday we're off. You're off. Teachers are not off. All right. And again, please use class time to do classwork because this can be done in the time allotted. So please, 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 please do classwork and class time. Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Like I said, I'm going to tweak this so we'll take that part out. But I'm not taking out the part that says that you don't have to give me a list. So I took that part out. You need to have a minimum of 2 references. So please, 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 you're high school students, you need to remember that you have to reference everything. Don't AI everything. Go to a legitimate website to get your information. All right, I tweaked it a little bit. All right, so that nobody feels like this is a class project. This is an individual project. And then what you can do is look at the heading and say, put household poisons in your search and see which ones, because you don't have to do all of them. You just have to look, do a heading, households um, poisons, and pick one. There are several kinds. You don't have to do all of them. This is not a generic thing. You're going to look at the heading, household poisons, and pick one type of poison from the household. You're going to do animal poisons, and there will be several. Pick one. Okay, you're not doing a generic PowerPoint on animal poisons. Pick one, name it, and what does it do? Same thing with plants. That's a heading. Those are headings. Put that in and pick one. Okay, same thing with food poisons. All right, so again, those are general headings. They will have several different kinds underneath each heading. You don't have to do all of them. Pick one. All right, and again, let me pull this back up where it says, and again, follow the rubric. You want to get all the points you can. When you do projects like this, you go back and you check, did I mention everything? So where it says sufficient and accurate information on the 5 points, these are the 5 points. So there's 25% of the grade on one poison alone is the fact that did you cover these 5 points up here? Or did you give a description of the poison? Did you name the type of organ that it affects in the body? Did you name the level of toxicity? Did you mention the body symptoms and at least one of these additional facts? Those are the 5 things. When they say 5 points for each part of those being accurately told in your PowerPoint. Then you need an illustration. So you need a picture of the poison. It should be neat and easy to read. So in other words, it shouldn't, like I said, teeny tiny. You shouldn't be trying to cram everything in one slide. Do 2 or 3 slides if necessary for each poison. Or do as many slides as, like people always ask, how many slides does it have to be? As many as you need. So for example, you can answer each of these points on one slide. So in that case, the whole thing would be 10 to 12. Title page doesn't count. Title page and reference. And you should have the reference for poison 1 before you go on to poison 2. Okay. And again, ask questions as needed. It can be Google Slides. It can be Google Slides. Doesn't have to be PowerPoint. It can be a doc. But it's going to be, if you do it as a doc file, it's going to be long. So it's better to do slides is easier because then you can add pictures and change format and things of that nature. So, um, but yes. Any other questions before I let you go? All righty. So again, we'll look at this on Tuesday and Thursday of next week. We'll still be doing this. You all have a great weekend and see you next week. Stay warm. It's about to get cold again.